Yeah, really. Like you
And
can't
that's
have,
what
even
I
if it's
mean.
like a bunch of foreigners.
If we divide ourselves as America and Britain as strong nations leading the planet, if we say, right, we're going to give everything we've got to poor countries, we'll have nothing left. And
Yeah,
then there's nobody left to give aid to anybody.
yeah. There's
It's
nothing.
not. It's called killing the golden goose. And at this point in time, Western nations, whether people like it or not, are the golden goose. I mean, we
And the thing
are.
is, like, all these other nations have more resources and more land space and all this stuff. They could basically do the same thing we're doing where
Yeah,
they live, and
you're
like
right.
it could have.
You're right. We got our corporations in there. That's the difference. Is like there's not an African village or country or a Chinese citizen that's not ideally working for. And I don't mean it in a good way or bragging, but it's saying that if the West wants something, the West out of anybody else on the planet can go get it because we have the money, because we have the technology. We are spearheading that's why we're the richest countries, period, because we have the most innovation.
Yeah, and here's another thing. And so, like, if well, a lot of people see, okay, for example, the map behind you, I know that a lot of people, if they just looked at countries and they weren't named or labeled like what countries they were, a lot of people wouldn't know which one's which, let alone try to tell you anything of how what's going on with that country or how to fix anything, right? So if people knew how corrupt like third world countries, the reason why they are normally so terrible is because their governments are even more corrupt than ours. Like they won't even let a plant grow out of the ground before they snatch it up. You know, snatching up saplings. At least in America, they let the trees grow before they cut them down. In other places, they just stomp the innovation before it even like
Yeah,
sprouts out the
and
ground.
a
You
lot
know?
of that is, I think a lot of that, if you look, is because of Western corporations.
Yeah, for sure. Like influence, like in like for example, in Africa, like France still does a lot of business with like the former colonial countries in Africa, but their government they just pay their it's the same thing. So it's like it's gotten past the point of just like racism or colonialism and that. It's just a bunch of lazy, corrupt pieces of crap because there's like African politicians and stuff. They straight up have their thugs like run the country and put guns to people and be like, don't do anything, just be poor. But then the African politician will just fly off to Switzerland and be hanging out with Macron, just in their fucking little Dr. Evil, mountainside villa with the glass fucking window that stretches all the way around like on some Dr. Evil shit. Like that's what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? And like same thing for Venezuela, like all like the whole Venezuela from like 2009 to 2019, everything collapsed. You know what I'm saying? And then like all the Venezuelan leaders, they have their thugs run around, point guns at everybody. So if any of y'all do anything, you're gonna get capped. And then the leaders just fly off to Europe and sip wine and be fancy and do the whole little I'm fancy thing. And then same thing in the UK. Like they're just trying to take all your money and leave. And let's just like there was a video I was watching the other day where somebody in the 1920s and 30s talked about this group of people in Europe, right? But he was in the UK and he was talking about how there's this group of British intellectuals, like college students, and like because back then obviously college was like one of the better because there wasn't internet obviously. So back then people were like I know stuff that you don't, and they're like the intellectuals. They hate Europe, they hated Britain, they hate the UK, and they were like I can't wait to be European. He's like, well then why don't you just go there? And they're like, how dare you? They give him the Greta Thunberg, but this is like the 1930s, and like they hate, and like it's been going on. There's like a group, like the group has never gone away. Like the core group, they keep keeping the same kids into it. Like it's like a family thing where it's like these intellectuals in Europe that live in the UK, but they hate. I hate the UK. Like I've been listening to a lot of like LBC radio, and they're like, there's these people like I'm a European citizen. He's like, well, first of all, Europe is not a country. It's a continent, but it's a continent, but it has like 20 some different countries, and all these people like they're not the same. Like they're not one European people. Like everyone, because they're trying to do a super state like America, but America was created all of the same. Even though like there's so many, like even America, like there's so many. That's why like none of this tyrannical shit works because there's so many different groups of people. Like if white liberals are like, I want to get rid of guns, like black people are like, nah, like they vote Democrat, but like they're like, nah, we're not doing that. Like, nope, not happening. No, like what? Because like I said, it's just different groups of people. So then they want to be like, oh, I'm a European. I'm like, no, because like, call a French guy, hey, are you German? And they'll probably look at you like you want to get smacked. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's all the same, right? And they look at you like, you lost your
It's
fucking.
like you're all European, you're all Southerners. That's it's fun. like when German rape statistics come out, and it's like, oh, women were raped by Southerners, and it's like what south of Germany is Africa, and that's the crazy thing though, and it is, it's just like they say, oh, people were raped by Southerners, and it's just or Asians are causing a lot of terrorist.
Asians.
That's what they say. They say Asians are causing terrorist attacks. So I say, do you mean what, the Japanese? What do you mean the Koreans? What do you mean the Chinese? What do you mean? Tell me the Thais. Who? But no, of course it's not. It is. It's radical, the radical element of Islam. And when people say Asian, they don't say Arab, and it's like it. John said they play these word games. I understand. I do know what you're saying, and it deflects from the real issues because you don't know who the you know what I'm saying? It's a weird.
Yeah,
Brent
because like I
Johnson.
said, because in America, like because they have like dialects and languages. Like we speak English here, we speak English there, but like they use words differently in phrases. So like here in America, Asian strictly means like Chinese, Japanese, Korean,
Yeah,
fucking like Asian.
exactly the
So
same in Brent. Exactly the same, Brent. See, should we get some Asian food? Last thing you think about is like a kebab. You know, you
yeah,
think about egg fried rice and Chinese or Indian or sushi or Thai food. Yeah, that's what I mean. And they
yeah.
play these
So
words.
so what they're doing is they're doing this little thing where they're trying to, because a lot of people don't know. I found this out like 2011. I was reading something like I've known this, but like I never really looked at it. Until like 2011. They're like, I was reading like the CNN website, and I would go click on Asia, like, hey, you want to hear stories from Asia, and they'd always include Pakistan, Afghanistan, and like from those countries over, right, all the way over to China
Yeah,
and stuff. And like most people were like Asia, like that's not Asia, like oh Asia Minor, Asia, all this like no, it's a word
that's the
game.
Middle
It's a
That's
word game. They're playing
yeah.
word games.
Asia. I mean, there's the map right there, and you've got
Can't
Saudi
see.
Arabia, Oman, right over to Pakistan, which borders. But I mean, that's obviously the cutoff
You
line,
gotta
isn't
flip
it?
the
You've got
screen up. We can't see. Yeah, flip the screen up a little bit. We can't see like all the way up there. There you go. Yeah.
it's not very good, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologise, but you've got China, you've got Thailand, you've got everything over this side, right, from Sri Lanka and India. And up here, then you've got the Middle East, which is obviously your Kazakhstan, right down to your Pakistan, right over to your Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Africa, Europe, Russia, Asia, the Middle East, right?
But they call that Asia though.
Well, the whole area.
No, they call everything from Iran over Iran over to the right is considered like Iran is Persia, and then everything right from the right of that is Asia. So they call India a subcontinent, and then but everything else is considered Asia sometimes. So like that's how they use that word game to trick people. You know what I mean?
Really? Well, yeah, but the first time I've actually ever heard of that. And as a 26-year-old man, I think if I was an Indian, I'd be really offended. So
Yeah.
they call them a subcontinent. It's like, don't worry about them.
But
It's
that's what they do to try to confuse people because they're like, oh, these Asians are doing this. That's not fucking Middle Easterners. I'm like, motherfucker, Pakistan. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I
yeah,
have friends from the Middle East and from Africa, you know what I'm saying? Like, and even then, they're like, why do white people do this? And like, they get very confused when they come to America because a lot of them they're not like fucking, like, if they make it to America and they're doing like other things, like, because like a lot of them, they might not know. So I was explaining to them. I had one friend, he's like a Muslim from Africa, and he's like, he doesn't like Donald Trump. He's like, yeah, I think he's kind of silly or whatever. But he's like, why are these white liberals? I guess he's like, why are they so offended by everything? Like I shared a picture of white sneakers, and they're like, oh, this is oppression because these are white sneakers or something. And he's like, he got so mad. He's like, I don't understand. He's like, they're trying to act offended so that they can like get like points or something like that. But like,
oh yeah, man. Yeah, a lot of people use it like that, but a lot of people, I mean, they're the people that use it because to take the piss, take the Mickey for their own advantage. Like the guy that would say, I'm going into Costa Coffee, I demand a free Costa Coffee because of stuff that's happened to people in the past of my race or religion, and the people behind Starbucks or Costa, they throw them, they can't serve them quick enough, and that's fair enough, but those people aren't the threat. The threat are the people that actually believe that they're.
Yeah, because their brain, like they're actually scared, like they're crying and like having like
Oh, that's what you
convulsions.
got liberals crying because Donald Trump was elected. You got people howling in the street. You got people crying. Lily Allen left the country and deleted her Twitter account because
Good,
Boris.
thank God.
Well, Stormzy went on, which is a UK grime artist, which actually some of his music's not too bad. But I went on to, but he went on to Italian. He went on to an Italian newspaper and said everybody, 100% of people in the UK that voted for Boris Johnson are racist. And it's just like half those people bought your brand new album this Christmas. So at your next gig, before you do it, I just like you to stand up there and say, everybody here, they bought my album last Christmas. If you're white and you supported Boris Johnson, you're a racist. And you lose half your supporters. And that's they're idiots, aren't they, Brent?
It's just like it's like a lot of people have stuff that happened in their childhood or in their life that they still hold on to. Like it could be like one day you dropped your favorite ice cream, and from that moment on, like the rest of your life, you were just traumatized and you never
Oh,
admitted it or
you get
something.
beaten up by a ginger kid at school. If you get bullied by a ginger kid at school, you end up hating ginger kids. Or if you're bullied by I don't know, if you're a woman and you I don't know, something bad happens to you, you're scared of things in the future. You know what I'm saying? It's like if me and you were to go to the woods because I got bit by a snake, I'd probably be a bit dubious of snakes. It's
Yeah.
just,
And so like a lot of people like sometimes they are not able to get over that, or sometimes like a lot of people's parents like they raise them in a way that makes them weaker than if they would have just been fucking left in the garbage can as a child, which sucks, but like that's how sad it is. So like they
well,
they need
overdoing things
someone to
so
save
they
them.
don't make their own mistakes, right? When it's like that, you need to let obviously people live their own life and they make their own mistakes, so they learn from
Yeah,
it.
they
There's
have to
too much.
learn, but they don't they have like generations of not learning, and then like these kids like
Oh
they're
yeah,
intentionally raising them soft, and they go to school and like and the schools are terrible sometimes to soften up. Some teachers are just mentally ill and they're just trying to pass the mental illness onto the kids. It's all intentional mental illness, right? It's all intentional. So then yeah, like all these people they're just soft and it's like a like I don't know how to explain this, kind of like if it's like a gravity well, I saw it in like some sci-fi movie where like they were flying in a spaceship and there was like a black hole or something, and then like they just got like this kind of sucked into it. But like everybody who has these issues that oh, I dropped my ice cream, or this kid with red hair is mean to me, and if you don't just suck it up and get over it, because everyone has to do it, because like I mean we live in a first world country, it's fucking nice here, like yeah, it's not perfect but it's decent. I don't see anybody
yeah,
leaving, for what I'm saying, but so like everyone who's like a certain type of issue in their mind, they get sucked into that I'm a victim black hole, and like and then they try to gather
yeah,
as many as they can, like, oh look, I have a million victims here. I'm like, okay, well there's 300 million not victims, so who cares? But
yeah,
the fact that all those three other hundreds of millions of people are all watching the 1 million people gathered on TV, all the individual hundreds of millions are watching the grouped up 1 million, and they think it's a big group of people. Like they have protests like we need to get rid of guns and blah. And I looked in that they had like a anti Second Amendment rally going on,
mm-hmm.
just strangely randomly funded like the same time that all the other ones were happening, right? And I look in that crowd and I'm seeing like a couple hundred people, like they're like, yeah, we need to get, and like you can't talk to them, so they're all obviously all paid. Most of them are paid stooges, or they're just so stupid that they don't know what they're talking about, so therefore definitely shouldn't listen to them, right? But so he's talking to like all these people, and I'm looking at the crowd on live stream, and I'm like, I know more people in my hometown that I live in right now that own guns than are in these fucking protests, right? So I'm just sitting here
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I know like at least over the course of my life, like I know hundreds of people who own guns. So I'm like, even just in the town that I'm from, all those people right there, you're just like, they all drove from out of town, like we're offended by, like, okay, how about this?
oh yeah, people come from miles, don't they? It's
Yeah,
like a Hillary Clinton event. You'd have buses and buses of people paid to come in from George Soros and other foundations, Super Society Foundation, and even when you pay 1,000 people to turn up and you get 500 people from the local community, and those groups are tiny, aren't they?
yeah,
And
it's
you
like,
think it's like Donald Trump said when they had their end 2000 Christmas, I think it was the New Year party. The year after Donald Trump, 2016, when he was still president elect, I believe, before they actually changed officially. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, they were at a meal. I'll tie this clip in with the video. And he just says to Hillary, I'm up here with I think it's 5,000 people having a nice meal and a drink, or as I call it, a close meal with some, I think it's something like a nice meal with some friends, or as Hillary calls it, her biggest turnout of the season.
Yeah, right. Real shit.
And they know that their supporters are minimum. They know that they have to pay half the people they have to turn up, and that's what I feel. I don't feel that the gun confiscation or anything like that is going to happen with a Republican government. The way with 200 or 300 million gun sales, with the amount of police and active military that are Second Amendment supporters, that have mums, dads, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, that have guns at home, they're not going to take them away from their family. I think the big threat is a false flag attack of, as Trump's being impeached, as the Senate is hearing the trial.
And also making all the Bernie bros and all the other progressives mad, because there's an Antifa group that came out and was like, I don't believe them, obviously, because they obviously don't trust them. But one of the guys who seemed as though he was attempting to be very genuine. He was saying, he's like, you know what? We're Antifa. We can't have a revolution if we're not allowed to have guns. So the Antifas are coming out to the march to try to march alongside with the conservatives. Like, hey, normally we act like a bunch of sacks of shit, but like, we don't want the police to come to our house. We don't want the police to kick in our doors. Like, we would never vote for that, you know? So it's really weird. I'm like, I don't trust that, but like, that's very weird, you know? But that does
sound weird. It does sound weird. It sounds like that. See, that sounds to me like an infiltration right there. Because, like, if you're pro Second Amendment and you can't have your violent revolution without guns, then fair enough. But you're in a country that already has guns. Why haven't you had your violent revolution? It's because your numbers aren't there. You know, it's not. I don't actually think that's even plausible. I don't think the left have enough energy to cause. I really don't. When you compare the enemy, and I mean this, I think this, when you compare the enemy to what we have, when you compare the enemy to the people that you saw in the Project Veritas video, with the guy up there saying, "Oh yeah, if he's one of the leaders, we've got fuck all to worry about."
Yeah,
right?
like,
we've got special forces people that have done 40 years of behind the scenes black ops, that love America, love patriotism, fought Islamic devils and everything else over in the deserts, and then come back and seen their own democracy, their own law and order destroyed or partially destroyed. We've got spec ops soldiers, and they've got crying liberals in the street and wannabe tough guys saying, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. I mean, do you know what? The first thing I thought when I saw that Project Veritas video was, and we're going to tie this video in a second, we'll show a clip from that. If you're a tough guy, if you don't say that. Even he didn't know he had a pin button camera. But if someone coming to me, whether I'm being genuine or whether I'm trying to beg myself, you're not going to give away the whole enemy operation. These are like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to round everybody up. We're going to re-educate them. It's like, you've got to be on some strong shit, mate, to think that.
Yeah, no, you really have to have like people going around, like, because the thing is, American cities are so, it would have to be like this massive movement of millions of people going like neighborhood by neighborhood and having a force that's scary enough to make people not come out of their house and be like, man, if you don't get the fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying?
You're talking about the left now, right? You're talking about the left. And you imagine if the left actually did that, one, where would they possibly start? Two, how could they assemble that many people without an armed response? And three, even if they did manage to assemble a million Antifa with weapons in one state, in a gun-free state, say California, and started recruiting, how could they at that point even be the National Guard, military, Second Amendment gun owners, and 51 other states? They can't. And how are you going to go door to door in a country of 330 plus million Americans, most of them owning guns, and take guns?
Okay, so what they're gonna do is they'll I'm gonna wrap this up here because I got a couple things I gotta do. But what they'll do is like they do here, they'll be like, we're gonna have a gun buyback, or they'll show some guns that they stole, or they're like, look at all the guns we collected, it's working, but they'll a lot of them are BB guns or like replicas or fakes. You know what I mean?
When was the last time? When was the last time in any state they did a gun roundup and gave money? How many people did that?
I think anywhere from like 50 to like 100 people might have turned into stuff, but more than half the guns were fake or didn't work or were broken or just other random things. And like,
Yeah,
but the
mate.
thing
I
is, but
mean,
it's like it's not the guns that they're looking for. They always get like these old like antique
anti.
fucking shotguns or like a BB gun from like the fucking 1970 that looks like a real gun because it's so rusty and beat up.
Prop. Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, or they're old people who weren't going to do shit anyway. But like most people, like I said, I go to gun shows, and I have a friend, right? He saved up some money. He bought a CNC machine. He lives out by the beach, and he has a factory on like him and one of his good friends. It's like $10,000 investment. They bought a bunch of other stuff. They make guns now. They make their own guns. You can start a company and make your own guns. So he's like, fuck you. Like I don't care. Like and like I said,
Definitely.
people are
Let me ask
not
you a
happy.
serious question. Let me ask you. No, that's a brilliant thing. But let me ask you a serious question. How many people that go to any gun show you've ever been? How many people would, if somebody said, "I will buy that gun off you because we need to hand your guns in, so I'm going to give you this"? How many people that go actively to gun shows and buy firearms would then give or sell the firearms back for less money because they feel that they shouldn't own them? None of them,
Yeah, none of
right?
them. But here's the thing: what they would do, because sometimes like what they'll try to do is they'll try to give you, they'll say, well, how much did you pay for it? And then you'll be like, oh, I paid $600. Give me 800. They'll be like, all right, here we got a gun off the street. They're gonna take that $800, go buy another $600 gun, and have $200 free. Like people are like nobody gives a shit. And the thing is,
No,
like,
it's not going to fly. The gun confiscation is not going to happen.
but they're
I
gonna
mean,
try. They're gonna try.
last the last time I thought they were going to have real gun confiscation was probably under Obama. But I mean, who would you get to implement this gun confiscation?
Nobody. The UN and China. That's the only people who can.
Point. That's the point. That's my whole point, Brent. Is that if the UN or China move to confiscate US guns, who's going to go along with that? The only people that could confiscate the US guns is the US people or the US government.
Which
And
they're
if it
not
was
gonna
the
do
US
that.
government, it'd be violent. And if it was the US people, it'd be voluntary. But neither of those are going to happen. So if the UN said you need to hand your guns in, the UN would get completely. If any UN troops landed, there would be
It would be a
a civil.
party. It would be a
It would,
fucking party.
you'd see blue helmets covered in red everywhere.
Yeah, no, you'd see people in America like, yeah, I've been waiting to shoot a motherfucker for free.
Because there's not going to be a Hunger Games type white hat scenario where the UN come in and you've got a village full of disarmed people. It's never going to happen. It's never going to
People,
happen.
what you know, the people in America are begging. They, like I said, they had that old movie Red Dawn where they had like the Russians parachuting in, like, yes, I get to use all these guns that I bought. You know, it's like,
Yeah. Well, do you know, and the truth is that people around the world, the UN got caught as the number one biggest human trafficker out of Africa in like 2018.
yeah, I keep
Like,
seeing articles all the time.
all of the people, yeah, compared to all of the drug traffickers, all of the cartels in Mexico, all of the demonish, hellish Jeffrey Epstein's, Jimmy Savelle's, everybody, out of all of that scum, right? The United Nations traffic more white women and girls and children out of African and Middle Eastern poor nations that they go in there to quote help and save and provide aid. They actually traffic more women and kids out of that than anybody else. Any Mexican cartel, any Chinese any Western
That's a
corporation in
fact.
China. That's a fact, and that's what I mean. So when people say that the UN is going to take over America, we say in Britain, and people are saying, "Please do it, UN," because we just want to see the UN go. It's headed up by people that are completely corrupt, and the United Nations is like a new world order term where it's just a handful of people in a whole club, and you're not in it.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? It's out there like, oh, well, the United Nations were to unite the nations, and all they are is to divide the nations, to play the nations off against each other, to suck money and energy, And that's what I mean. When you learn the United Nations are the number one trafficker of white women, or not white, but women and children, period, across the planet. You find that out, and then you hear of a UN. Imagine the Chinese landed. How would the Chinese take over economically?
They'd have to
Not
do, like I said,
even
it'd have to be economic, and that's the only way they could do it. But
it's
like I said,
economically. They
that's that.
can't land Chinese military in America, and they can't yet land UN troops. It's going to have to be through legislation, and in China are losing power, I believe.
Yeah,
I
100%.
believe.
Because people are like, even people inside their own country are just not having it. But like I said, man,
Well,
I gotta run here. I got a couple of things I gotta
no
do.
problem. Yeah,
This is
I've
a
enjoyed
great
every second of this,
conversation.
man.
Everyone,
Well, I'll
huh?
message you on Snapchat, and in the middle of the week, we'll try and sort out that live stream problem.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was the silly. But yeah, man, everybody check out his channel TNTV News. That's TNTV News. Adventures Guide to the Galaxy. That's me. I got a couple of friends. I'm helping them run YouTube channels, and they'll be, they'll have videos up. We did like some stuff last night. Definitely look for some more stuff coming out. We're doing some more live streams, more videos, more content in general, and everything. And it's good talking to you. Good, being here for everybody. And we'll definitely see y'all
Talk to
later.
you too, Britain. Great to talk to you too, buddy. Have a great evening, and thank you for this.
All right, man. Definitely. I'll see y'all later.
Yep. See you later, buddy.